Hello and welcome to another edition of the Talking City podcast with myself, Alex James, and Chief City writer Simon Bajkowski. Good morning, Simon.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We had a few technical difficulties there. I won't tell you which one of those was to blame, but suffice to say it wasn't me. But pleased to say,
that Oldham don't have Wi-Fi.
Pleased to say Simon is with us and in glorious audio and technicolor quality to reflect on another weekend. A little bit of we've been here before, Si, with kind of what happened at the Etihad on Saturday in terms of performance, result, positives and negatives. They're all sort of pretty familiar to us.
Yeah, it was just rubbish, really. I think, you're expecting like some kind of reaction from such a limp performance at Nottingham Forest, and you got it in parts, but it was just the whole afternoon was drab. Like the atmosphere was drab. The team, just nothing about them to try and to be able to win the game. A point against Brighton may well get City to where they want to be, which is Champions League qualification. But they're just so far off the team that they want to be, but also kind of the team that they should be with those 11 players or 20 players, whatever makes a squad, sort of out there. It was just another deflating afternoon, I think.
Yeah, obviously the game was 3:00. I wasn't at the game, but I've seen plenty of highlights. It struck me again how open it was. How, for all we've seen, City control things so well under Pep Guardiola, season after season, year after year. That just seems to have gone out the window in the last few weeks and months.
Yeah, and if you want to talk about it being sort of out of control, it's kind of 2 weeks in a row where City have not had control of the game, because they did have a lot of possession against Nottingham Forest, but Nottingham Forest were happy for them to have possession.
That style and that approach that serves City so well, for whatever reason. And if you and I sitting here in Manchester could put our fingers on it, we'd be employed by City, I'm sure. But they look careless in possession. They look, they can't defend at the moment, can they? Both goals, certainly the first goal, was a catalogue of errors from 3 or 4 different players that Brighton scored on Saturday. Every time Brighton went forward, at least according to the highlights I've seen, it looked like they were going to score. And I know they've got injuries. They've got a different back five again, with Ederson missing out. They haven't had any consistency in that area of the pitch, which doesn't help. But there are some real basic errors going on in that game.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because kind of a theme of Guardiola's squad is still good, still great. Jack Grealish is great. He just can't get in the team because everyone not short of confidence. Phil Foden not short of confidence. Like, everyone's great. And he was asked on Friday, do you think you'll see a bigger squad next season? And he was like, well, probably not, because if you can tell me that Stones will be fine, Ake will be fine, Akanji will be fine, De Bruyne will be fine, I think we'd have been challenging this season, and I think we'll be fine next season. And you think, well, that's fine. But the longer it goes on and the team just keeps making mistake after mistake after mistake, like, are they fine? And I sort of asked Pep after the game and said, we've seen these mistakes all season. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, well, why? Because it's like basically the same players. And he was like, oh, no, absolutely not. No, not the same players at all. No, different from last year. And then went to talk about how they've lost the work ethic and discipline that made them the best, which kind of, yes, they are missing players, but also it sort of sounds like a lot of the players that are still there, at least in person, are not performing to the levels that they were. And that's fine if everyone just has an off season and everyone just says, all right, yeah, 24, 25, not going to be our best. And then come August, whenever, and the new season starts, we're all going to be 100% again. But I don't think it's as easy as that.
No, it doesn't. You would have no confidence that City would hit the ground running in August now, would you? Or at the Club World Cup, that even though they've had they might get 3 or 4 key players back. Rodri perhaps been the most important. And like you say, Stones and whoever might come back and be fit for the start of the season, even though the new signings have had 3-4 months of Premier League football, 3-4 months of life under Pep Guardiola, more training time than you would normally get because City aren't in the Champions League anymore. Even with all that being said, you still don't sit here and think, yeah, I can see City kicking the season off with 6 wins in a row, or what we've been used to seeing under City, under Pep in previous seasons.
Yeah, exactly. Like everyone feels like, rebuild started, rebuild's continuing in summer. Next season we'll be back. Ruben Diaz last week was thumping the tub again, and he had quite a few good points, but it's just, I feel like City have been sucked into this where they feel like, yeah, we'll be fine. We're not our best now, but we'll be fine next season. And it's like, well, you actually have to finish this season well to make sure that next season can be fine. And I'm not taking anything away from Brighton, who were very good, but it didn't, to me, feel like a brilliant Brighton performance. It felt like a Brighton who were there to be got at. And again, just as like they beat Forest 3-0 back in December and everyone thought it was a turning point, and then it turned out to be an anomaly in a set of results. Like beating Newcastle 3-0 last month looked to be like the start of the optimism again, and then the results since that have suggested that it might too be another anomaly.
Yeah. If you were looking for something to cling to, is there signs of this developing partnership between Marmoush and Haaland, or was that a little bit how Brighton play that allowed maybe Marmoush to enjoy a bit more space than perhaps he's had previously? How do you sort of see that pairing developing?
Marmoush was lively. He was very good. He looks very impressive. He has kind of changed the way City play slightly, in that he is closer to Haaland. So him being closer to Haaland and central means that they don't quite have the midfield presence that they did have. And no Rodri means that they don't quite have the midfield presence that they did have. And no kind of effective number 8 means that they don't quite have the midfield presence they did have. So it feels like that huge area of the pitch in the middle where City used to control is now just a vacuum. And very occasionally Erling Haaland will charge back to try and win a ball, won't do much with it, and the opponents will get the ball back again. And yeah, like without sounding too down, I think Marmoush is a very good signing and has very good qualities, but it's almost like saying, right, well, the midfield isn't good, so we're just going to bypass it completely and play Marmoush up top with Haaland and just go kind of straight to those guys because we can't control it anyway, so let's not try. But it does leave large areas of the pitch sort of for the opponents to take control of the game.
Yeah, and the players we would associate, or that Pep has said in the past, bring us the control, e.g. Mr. Grealish, Mr. Foden, and Mr. De Bruyne, are all on the bench. So those two things don't marry up either.
No. And, Grealish was a topic of conversation on Friday before the match because he'd been left out of the England squad, and Pep said, yeah, he's doing everything right. It's just everyone's brilliant. And he was a topic of conversation after the match. And someone said, what should he do during the international break? And, it's just everyone else is so good. You think, well, they're not though, are they? Because City have not won for the past 2 weeks. It wasn't, I don't think anyone came away and thought, City were robbed against Brighton. They should have had a big win. It was sort of, it's a damning indictment of Grealish this season that, Marmoush, Savinho and Doku were preferred to him. And then Bernardo Silva comes on, and I think, Silva's going to come on for Gundo. Silva comes on for Savinho. So, they'd rather have Silva on the wings than Grealish. And then Silva gets injured and Foden comes on. So, Grealish is so far down the pecking order. It's really hard for him to get back in. He has to do more in training, basically, to outperform them, to show what he can do. But also Foden needs to do more. And yeah, De Bruyne has started so few games recently. It really does feel like that midfield has just packed up and gone home.
Yeah, what do you think this? So obviously we've talked about De Bruyne loads on this podcast for what feels like 18 months, but he's obviously out of contract. Foden, incredible season last season. You can't judge him by last season as the standard for every season because he was so far and above most other players in the Premier League last season. But his form has deteriorated significantly. Grealish hasn't got going at all, really. Injuries haven't helped him. Where does it leave those three sort of real key creative players? And three, well, certainly in Foden and Grealish's case, two people who were, I know De Bruyne didn't play in the Champions League final, or barely played, but two people who were key in that treble-winning season. And De Bruyne has been one of City's best players for a decade. Where does it leave those three? And can they all play together for City again? As dramatic a question as that sounds.
I mean, in the short term, it leaves none of them in a position to help City between now and the end of the season, it looks like, which is really the problem. You know, Foden might be brilliant next season. De Bruyne might be much improved. Grealish might have found something. But for the here and now, none of them look able to kind of step up and make sure that City get to where they need to be this season, which is a bit of a concern. De Bruyne, kind of every game that goes on and he's left on the bench, you think, well, if he does stay, he can't have a major role or a major salary because, you know, again, that Forest game in December, he came back and it was like the return, and then it's just not happened for him. And, you know, for him to be so out of favour, like something isn't right there. So it's, and that is a problem, but it's perhaps more of a problem that Foden, who is younger, is having the same issues. So it doesn't leave City in the best of place, really.
Yeah, and it puts a lot on. I mean, I feel a little bit for İlkay Gündoğan, to be honest, because he's come back, and it is the romanticism of it all, and it is you shouldn't come back to your former club, and it isn't like it was, and all that stuff. But he's been asked to do a job that isn't really the job he was signed to do. And he's 2-3 years on from, you know, he's not prime İlkay Gündoğan anymore. And he's been asked to do not the Rodri job, but some of the Rodri job. And he's struggling. And playing like he did on Saturday exposes him probably a little bit more than you would want to, or it feels like it exposes him more than you should even need to, because you've already got a guy there. He's playing slightly out of position. He's not having his best season. He's, what is he, 33? And your solution seems to be, well, we'll play Doku, Savinho, Marmoush, and Haaland. And like you say, kind of, you look after the midfield, Ilkay, and we'll see how we go.
Yeah. And, you know, Nico Gonzalez was in there as well. And he has helped the situation. But yeah, it's kind of been a season where no one's come out of it well. And it could have been a season where Savinho slotted in and added kind of 10 goals and assists in a successful team, where James McAtee was brought into a successful team and kind of impressed a bit more than he has done. And where people who didn't find their feet initially could do, like Foden or De Bruyne. But because everyone is struggling, there's just been kind of no respite for anyone. And I mean, there was a moment with Gundo where he sort of turned in the box, did a really nice turn, and then sort of flicked, and sort of two seasons ago that would have gone in the net. And I think it was blocked, and it was just one of those sort of things that there wasn't anything wrong with what Gundogan did, but, you know, 2 years ago at the peak of his powers, he would have just found a way to do something. And he's not the only one, because like Foden last year or De Bruyne for most of his time here would have found a way. But nobody is at the minute, and City are really, really struggling as a result.
For years, we always used to play Pep roulette as to what kind of team Pep would put out. But you got the feeling in the last 2 or 3 seasons that he his best 11 for the big games, you kind of knew where it was going to be. And at the moment, it doesn't feel like he knows what his best 11 is. He's got probably because he's got too many players out of form and he's got 2 or 3 new signings to adapt. But it doesn't feel like he quite knows right now who he would pick if he could pick anybody, which 11 players that would be. Like, you would assume he would pick Ederson over Ortega, but arguably he might want someone new in the summer. He probably has Guardiola at left back, but like it's very difficult to go, oh yeah, John Stones would be nailed on centre half alongside Ruben Dias, because it doesn't feel like it's the case anymore.
No, I mean, that is the generous take. The other take is that he knows what his best 11 is. They're just not good enough at the minute. And when you see performances like the last 2 weeks, you do kind of wonder. He's insisted on going for Savinho and Doku, and they have had performances to back up those displays, but neither of them were amazing against Nottingham Forest, and yet they've still kept their places for Brighton, and that may well be the game plan. It may well be because they impressed in training the most, but it doesn't suggest that there is anyone kind of knocking on the door. And you sort of hark back to the glory days of Pep's best teams, and you had sort of players scoring braces or getting 2 assists in a game and still not being guaranteed a start in the next game. And now it's kind of like, even if you make 3 mistakes in a game, like Gvardiol has made errors in the last 2 games that have led to goals, but you can't take him out of the team because who's coming in? Like, there isn't anyone.
Yeah.
And it would seem daft to take him out because he had so much to the attack as well. But it's a problem if your left back is giving up a goal a game and you can't replace him.
And I guess when you've got like a side like City and a squad like City, and they have been, and potentially might be again, but they've been such a well-oiled machine that you feel there's a little domino effect, and maybe Rodri was the first domino to fall, and then that then puts something else out of kilter, and somebody's not quite in form, and it leads to something else, and somebody gets injured, and before you know it, you've got this kind of, I'm not even sure what the word is. I'm grasping for a word of
this,
but this kind of nothingness, for want of a better word.
Yeah, it feels like a vacuum at the minute, and it's really hard for anything to thrive in a vacuum. And City is showing it, and it just wasn't. It was another afternoon where it felt like it's not been enjoyable for anyone at the Etihad, really. And that extends to the crowd, where, there was a lot before the game about how there were loads of tickets still available in the ground because of prices for 60 to 80 quid for single match tickets. And it didn't, Pep had said on Friday, oh, we need our fans, it's the final. And then after the game, had to say kind of like, well, we need to do something to get the fans to come on, because like at the minute as well, I think, you've got a fan base that has seen it all, won it all, and they're not enthralled with the decisions the club is making at the minute with kind of match days and atmospheres and tickets, but also the kind of effort of the players. And so it's sort of like nobody's performing as they should be. And until that changes, it's going to be very hard for City to start getting results.
I'm just trying to think. If City had what you would say has been a 90-minute City-esque performance this season? Has there been a game where you've seen 90-odd% of the game? Has there been a game where you've been like, oh yeah, that was flawless, or that was what I would expect from a winning machine, like we would have seen in the back end of last season on the way to the title?
I think the Newcastle game was probably closest to it. They were very good or very decent at the start of the season, sort of including kind of West Ham away and those kind of games. But across the 90 minutes, Newcastle is probably the one. But like I say, that felt like, oh, this is the start of City being back, and then it's not really transpired. So, yeah, problems for Pep to think about.
Yeah, Sitting here now, do you still back them for? I mean, the fixture list is, in any other circumstances, you would describe it as favourable for City between here and the end of the season. But this isn't any other season. Do you sit here now and think, yeah, they'll be all right? They'll be top 5 because top 5 probably will be enough.
They should be. They should be good for top 4, but they haven't been as good as they've needed to be in the last few weeks, and that then puts a question mark against like Aston Villa at home, Bournemouth at home, where they should be good enough to win and to sort of take points off teams who are also going for the top 4 or 5. But if that's not the case, and if they drop points or even lose in those games, then that becomes a real issue as well. You don't just view it on results, but you view it on performance. And after the Nottingham Forest performance, are you more or less confident City will make the top 4? Less confident. After the Brighton performance, are you more or less confident they'll make the top 4? Less confident. It's still a very high percentage, that they will, but it's not been a great fortnight for them.
No, I remember we sat here, well, probably must have been 2 weeks ago, and said, if you take 6 points from which feels like a ridiculous notion having watched the 2 games since, but if you sit here and take 6 points, then it's pretty much job done in a sense for that top 4, and you're flying into an international break with an FA Cup quarter-final with a load of momentum, and almost the exact opposite has happened. We've had 1 point, we've had 2 poorish performances. Yeah, City is still 5th, but they've got 5 or 6 teams within 3 points or 4 points of them. I think Newcastle will have a game in hand. Fulham have hauled themselves back into it with a win yesterday, and I think all those teams, Brighton, Fulham, Villa, have all lost fewer games than City this season. So you suddenly left scratching your head again and thinking, well, it's possible they could end up 6th or below here. I'm with you. I don't think they will. I haven't seen enough from even Chelsea above City to see 2 teams putting together enough more points than City over the last 9 games to finish ahead of City and push City to 6th or lower. I don't see that, even with City's struggles of the past 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, I think so. And, Aston Villa have got a Champions League quarter-final with PSG to think about, and Newcastle have had this amazing cup win. Will that kind of take their eye off for a week or two? Fulham, Brighton, Bournemouth have all kind of got their own inconsistencies to deal with.
And also in the FA Cup.
Yeah. Bournemouth in particular felt like the strongest, and then throwing away a 2-goal lead against Spurs, and then taking the lead against Brentford and losing. You feel like that is 2 real opportunities missed for them. So nobody's kind of running away with it, apart from Forest, who are looking good to get 3rd. And there are two spots left. So, like I say, you still think City will get there. They absolutely should get there, but they're not doing anything to inspire more confidence that they will.
Yeah, and we've now got an international break to dwell on all of that. And it used to be a classic press conference staple of, is this international break come at a good time or a bad time for you? Probably doesn't apply as much these days because so many players are away on international duty. But what's for Pep is someone who we've seen physically and emotionally just how much he puts into this job and this team. How's he going to approach the next sort of 14 days before that cup quarter final? Will he allow himself a bit of time off? Is he going to dive back in and work as harder than ever because of what's gone before? How does he cope in these sort of situations?
No, he'll take some time off. He tends to have to take some time off just to sort of refresh and reset. He will take some time, and then he will be sort of back a few days before the players arrive. So he kind of feels he's in the place to start as soon as they start coming back with preparations for what's next. I think the issue is that, again, we've seen it as like a full-on positive that they have a week between games, and everything like that. And it doesn't necessarily, I think Ruben Diaz mentioned it was a new challenge, and you sort of think, well, how is it a challenge to have more time to prepare? But Pep said before the game, he was like, well, the past years would show that we're very good when we have games every few days. And every few days you think, right, well, someone who hasn't performed well has got a chance to turn it around, or someone else who hasn't played has got a chance to come in. Whereas now they're really long weeks or 2 weeks between matches, and you have to there's a lot that can be done to try and get you into that starting 11, but it's really, really long waits for players who aren't getting into the team. So like Grealish or De Bruyne, like, what do they do? Do they do extra training to kind of say, hey, I'm here and I'm ready to start? Or do they kind of, take it a bit easy as well? It's really difficult. And it's kind of it will only be defined by, well, are they picked or not? Do City win or not? That kind of thing. So it's very difficult to know what's best.
Yeah, and they don't need to tell you or I about long weeks between games either. When we've when we're trying to provide as much coverage as possible, we'd always rather a game or several games in a week to get our teeth stuck into. So we haven't got any games to get our teeth stuck into now until that cup quarter final, as mentioned, on a week on Sunday at Bournemouth. But there'll be plenty to come between now and then across all our usual MEN channels, and we'll be taking a bit of a closer look at a few of the off-field issues around City over the coming days and week or so. So do give us a follow and stay tuned to all our content, and hopefully we'll be back. Well, we will be back. There's no hopefully about it. We will be back between now and then a couple of times, and we'll be in better spirits ahead of a really important cup quarter final at Bournemouth, which is another defining game in this little run-in of defining games. So thanks very much, Si, as ever, for your time, and thank you to everybody for listening and watching, and we'll see you soon.